गुड इवनिंग एंड वेलकम टू गनर शॉट। गनर शॉट में आप सबका स्वागत है। आज हम बात करने वाले हैं तालिबान, पाकिस्तान और टीटीपी के बारे में। और ये हेडिंग इसीलिए है 2 years ऑफ ब्रोकन शैकल्स, यानी कि 2 साल हो गया वो गुलामी का जंजीर तोड़ते हुए, जिस तरीके से इमरान खान ने बताया। और इसके बारे में और बाकी चीजों के बारे में, इन तीनों तालिबान, पाकिस्तान और टीटीपी के बारे में बात करने के लिए है मेरे साथ हैं अनंत मिश्रा। अनंत, वेलकम टू गनर शॉट। ये पहली बार है आप हमारे चैनल पे आ रहे हो।
थैंक यू सो मच सर, थैंक यू फॉर होस्टिंग मी सर, बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया।
ओके, अभी मैं इससे पहले कि सब्जेक्ट शुरू करूं, मैं बताना चाहता हूं अनंत को क्यों बुलाया। अनंत इज अ वेरी यंग एंड अपकमिंग स्ट्रेटेजिक स्कॉलर, राइट? ही इज डन अ कोर्स इन फ्रांस। ही इज वर्चुअली एनसाइक्लोपीडिया कि तालिबान में क्या हो रहा है, अफगानिस्तान में क्या हो रहा है, टीटीपी में क्या हो रहा है, और ये टीटीपी, तालिबान और पाकिस्तान के बीच में क्या हो रहा है, तालिबान और हमास के बीच में क्या हो रहा है। और ये हर रोज मेरे पास आर्टिकल लिखता भेजता रहता है कि ईरान के बारे में और इजराइल के बारे में, जेरूसलम के बारे में, हमास के बारे में। इन चीजों के बारे में मैंने सोचा बाद में बात करेंगे इनके साथ। पहले जो हमारा दोस्त पाकिस्तान, राइट, ओके, उसके बारे में, जो वो झेल रहा है, उसके बारे में हमने बात करने के लिए इनको बुलाया। ओके, टू सेट द स्टेज एज टू क्या करना है, आई गिव अ लिटिल बैकग्राउंड, उसके बाद आप बात कर सकते हो आनंद। जैसे हम सबको पता है, पिछले हाल ही में एक बड़ा सा टीटीपी का अटैक हुआ है मियांवाली एयरबेस के ऊपर। उसके अंदर उस एयरबेस के अटैक में क्या परिणाम निकला है, कितने एयरक्राफ्ट नष्ट किया वगैरह वगैरह, उसका थोड़ा धुंधला सा कहानी है। अभी तक मेरे ख्याल में आईएसपीआर वाले छुपा रहे हैं उनके खुद के लॉसेस को। पर इसके अलावा हर दूसरा दिन कोई ना कोई अटैक चलता रहता है, पूरा ड्यूरैंड लाइन के साथ साथ, खैबर पख्तूनख्वा में, बलूचिस्तान में। और कभी बीएलए का हो जाता है, कभी टीटीपी का हो जाता है, आजकल नया टीजेके करके एक आ गया है। तो कोई ना कोई हादसा होता रहता है जहां पाकिस्तान इज लूजिंग पीपल रेगुलरली। इसके साथ साथ अगर हम देखेंगे तो चंद एक हफ्ता 10 दिन से ये अफगान रेफ्यूजीज को वापस भेजने का सिलसिला भी शुरू हो गया। और ये दिस इज नॉट बीन टेकन वेल बाय तालिबान। आफ्टर ऑल, already I think about 2-3 lakhs people have gone and वहाँ problems हो रहे हैं। and so ये जो relationship जो अफगानिस्तान और या तालिबान और पाकिस्तान के बीच में था, वो बिगड़ रहा है। और इसका जो व्हाट इसके बारे में जो इनका जो आजकल का जो प्राइम मिनिस्टर है, बरसाती प्राइम मिनिस्टर, उसने ये बोला है कि पाकिस्तान हैज डिसाइडेड not to advocate the Afghan Taliban's case at the international level or extend any other assistance following failure of Afghanistan's authorities to neutralize the banned TTP. ओके, यानी कि टीटीपी को वो हाथ बिल्कुल नष्ट करना चाहते हैं। पर बात यह है कि तालिबान को हाथ दे रहे हैं। Since Taliban came into power, ये इसके कहानी है, Pakistan has witnessed a 60% increase in terrorism and suicide attacks witnessed 500% increase. ये तो बहुत मात्रा का increase है। और इसने तालिबान को बता दिया है, you have to choose between पाकिस्तान और तहरीक तालिबान पाकिस्तान। वही कहानी है जो जॉर्ज बुश ने बोला था, either you are with us or against us। ये अभी चेतावनी दे रहा है तालिबान को। बट ये तो एक तरीके का ये है। बट दिस op-ed which I saw in Dawn, I think 2 days back, by Taqir Hussain, who is one of their ambassadors, who writes regularly in Dawn, he says Pakistan and Afghanistan have always had a complex relationship that has been mishandled by both sides. Very important. Each has expected the other to make up for the failure of its own policies. So there is failure of policies on दोनों तरफ, and has sought solutions that were worse than the problem. ये खुद का बोलना है इनका, and has become friendly with the other's enemies. and they share a contentious history, overlapping identities, and a disputed border, divided ethnicity, and bifurcated tribes. So he has actually defined कि problem क्या है पाकिस्तान और अफगानिस्तान के बारे में. It puzzles the Pakistanis that the Afghans are not grateful for all that they did for them. True, Afghanistan was liberated from Soviet occupation, and later, according to a former prime minister, it broke the chains of slavery, right? Gulami ka zanjeer, that had tied it to another superpower. But what did the Afghans get on being liberated? A process in which Pakistan helped not once but twice the Taliban. तो पाकिस्तान ने अफगानिस्तान को तालिबान का तोहफा दिया है, ये खुद बोल रहे हैं. Contrary to what some Pakistanis think, the Afghan Taliban's fight was not for Afghans but for their own power and ideology that arose from a conflict amongst the Afghans, but between Afghans and Taliban. ठीक है? So it is only a power struggle जो हो रहा है. We cannot bank on the Taliban to act against them, as this could cause their own disintegration. अगर वहाँ disintegration हो गया तो पाकिस्तान तो और खड्डे में जाएगा. So this is the background. I thought मैंने सेट करो कि इनका रिलेशनशिप मेरे ख्याल में इस एम्बेसडर ने बहुत अच्छी तरीके से बताया है बिटवीन तालिबान, टीटीपी एंड पाकिस्तान. तो नाउ जस्ट टेक ऑफ एंड आप बताइए, आपने तालिबान के ऊपर काफी रिसर्च किया है और आप बहुत लोग मानते हैं कि जितना आपको ज्ञान है टीटीपी के बारे में मेरे ख्याल में कम ही लोग होते हैं. तो प्लीज कैरी ऑन, ऑल योर्स.
थैंक यू सो मच सर. एंड आपने एक मैं क्वेश्चन एक कोट देख रहा था सर. देयर वाज वन पर्टिकुलर वर्ड दैट कॉट माय अटेंशन वाज हाउ द पाकिस्तानीज फील दैट द इशू has been mishandled. The relationship between Afghanistan and Pakistan is being mishandled. मतलब सर मिसहैंडल रिलेशनशिप तब होती है ना सर जब रिलेशनशिप होती है. So the relationship was as long as the Taliban wanted. So they made the Pakistanis realize that the Taliban are on a short leash. But then the problem and the failure for the Pakistani authorities was to understand or interpret that it was not the Taliban who were on a short leash, it was essentially the Pakistanis who were on a short leash. Because the moment Taliban took over Kabul, the entire Quetta Shura, Miran-Shah Shura, the entire Shuras, they migrated on the second day, including their families. And not one member of the original Shura resided or continued to reside even in the first 4 months of Taliban taking over to Kabul. So it's a very surprising element when Pakistanis contradict their argument by saying पहले तो मुजाहिद ने लड़ा, अपने ईमान के लिए लड़ा, अपने ज़मीर के लिए लड़ा और अब दगाबाजी कर गए. So this is normally what you see when you go to the other extent of the FATA province in the NWFPs. So essentially for Pakistanis, Tehrik-e-Taliban and the Taliban, or I would rather say the Taliban turned out to be dagabaz. अब सर कौन dagabaz है तो इसमें I mean I leave it to the audience who did dagabazi and where. Now the interesting point is sir, Taliban 2 years. I mean, so 2 years of Taliban reign. The initial years of TTP, which is essentially become the problem of both according to Pakistan and एक और word था कि TTP as a terror organization. Now TTP as a terror organization was sanctioned by Pakistan, not by Afghanistan. Afghanistan never considers TTP as a terror in the first place. So when somebody or when some power of authority points out in his writing that TTP is a banned state or TTP is a banned organization that needs to be equivocally banned by Afghanistan as well, ये ऐसा relationship कभी था ही नहीं और ऐसा relationship तालिबान विश्वास ही नहीं करता. That doesn't even exist in the minds and the hearts of Afghans and Pashtuns. So interestingly, sir, what I also saw was how they categorize the ethnic dimensions in their statements. They say Afghans, so they are not calling Pashtuns. They're saying Afghans, Tajiks, Hazaras, some Ismaili, some Uzbeks, but then they're saying there is Taliban. So that means they're pointing out that there is Pashtun and there is Afghan, and that is the root cause of all the problems, sir. because after 2023, I mean, I would say after 2023, the end of the years of 2023, this decision of what we first heard of Pakistan moving away, shrugging away the responsibilities of all, um, I would say, Afghan refugees, and moving down, essentially forcing them to cross borders, is going to be a bit of a problem, because the large scale recruitment that we currently see in this particular area of FATA and NWFP is going to increase. And this is something that is categorically spoken by Maulvi Bajairi, who is a very senior Taliban TTP leadership, and he was supported
Yeah,
by another
carry on.
argument made by Mufti Khalid Bulti. Sir, interestingly, TTP as an entity that we bring in with Pakistan coming in, TTP recruitment or the rise of TTP or major percentage of TTP recruitment doesn't happen in Pakistan. Let me be very categorical about it. It happens in Paktika, Nangarhar, Khostan, and Kunar provinces, which are bordering the Bajo district of Pakistan. So all these provinces are at the Bajo district. They share borders with Pakistan border, with the Pakistani border state of Bajor. Now, the continued emphasis of Pakistan by pointing out that there are Afghan refugees who may have contributed within the TTP ranks. What Pakistan, what is going to backfire by moving down the Afghans from their ancient, I would say, ancient household, because वहां पे पुश्ते जमा हो गई थी, छह छह सात सात generations have come across, and this is now being pointed out by Taliban in their recruitment rallies and large influx of sympathizers, and most infuriated by the decision what Pakistan has taken, is now overtly joining ranks. So this has become more of a counterproductive decision taken by Pakistan at this particular point of time. Now, in the second year, so I'm talking about the current year that is going on with respect to Taliban. The Rehbari Shura made a very strong note of it. The Rehbari Shura is the one essentially who controls all key decision making under the Amir Akhundzada himself. And he said that the irresponsibility of the Pakistani state to not have a discussion with Afghan and identifying even Taliban members as legitimate entities to have a negotiation with, this is a religious obligation by the Taliban to support TTP all the more. So now it has become a religious obligation by Taliban to support TTP. So Pakistan's decision. So
या दैट मीन्स जो आप बोल रहे हो ये है कि अभी ये इनको ये पूरा रिफ्यूजीज को भेजने की वजह से अफगानिस्तान the Afghan Taliban will support TTP even more, and the ranks of Afghan Taliban and TTP will increase, and
now,
most of them will be
absolutely,
and most of
absolutely,
them will be those people who have stayed in Afghanistan यानी पाकिस्तान, जो
in
पाकिस्तान
Pakistan,
बिल्कुल अच्छी अच्छी तरीके से जानते हैं और उन्होंने यहाँ
बिल्कुल,
रिश्ता भी बना लिया.
बिल्कुल, दे हैव मैरिड हियर सर. यहाँ पे छह सात पुश्ते निकाली हैं. एंड लेट मी टेल यू सर, द इंसिडेंट दैट द अटैक एट द मियांवाली एयरफोर्स बेस had two Afghan Taliban members. Let me be very categorical and responsible in saying this. I have rarely identified Afghan Taliban directly operating within the TTP ranks as a, I would say, as a notice of participation or an engagement. In Myanmar, this happened. So now you have motivated members who are volunteering to join TTP from the Afghan Taliban ranks to take a revenge against the Pakistani authorities. I have never seen this ever. I have never seen since Taliban takeover. This has been the third incident in 2 years that Afghan Taliban has been directly involved in this.
Okay, चलो आगे.
So now what happens is, sir, now this has increased the Taliban ranks to be more sympathetic, and let me tell you, the leadership council, the Rabari Shura, has become more, I would say, hell bent on strengthening the TTP ranks. Now the idea is to, how do you intend to project the growth of TTP? What Taliban is currently doing is they are focused after the decision of moving away the refugees. They've restructured the TTP in a bit. they are going to have more number of affiliates coming in from FATA and NWFP. So there were initially recruits coming in from the provinces inside Afghanistan. So they've abandoned the policies of recruiting within Afghanistan itself. Now they are emphasizing on making recruitment inside NWFP and FATA provinces. Second, what they've done is, sir, they've centralized their organizational structure. Now, instead of shadow provinces, they've decided to do is, instead of nominating a provincial, I would say a provincial commander from or a provincial governor as a shadow governor from Afghan Taliban, they've start picking members or loyalist members who've been members of the Taliban since the Tehrik-e-Taliban's existence. Now they are the ones who's going to take responsibilities in the centralized structure. So those who were essentially Pakistani Pashtuns are now going to take up going to take leadership appointments in this centralized structure, which will have one emir only, which will again have the I would say the citizenship or the relationship with some history with Pakistan. Now, this decision has largely made them focus on local objectives. Now, when I say local objectives, I will give you a huge detail as to what they intend to do. But they've also restructured their policy by expanding influence through affiliates. Now, in 2019 and 2020, if I do a comparative analysis, TTP's inclination to grow the affiliates, the inclination and the level of achievement was quite, I wouldn't call it escalated, but then with the coming of with the decision that the Pakistanis have taken and the 2 years of confidence that Taliban has, TTP has over 23 affiliates, and most of them are local factions. Most of them have regional influence, and they have categorized recruitment of local affiliates on the basis of regional influence. So since 2022, if I may say, from January, I have identified 11 factions who are currently affiliated since 2022 with certain regional influence. And let me tell you, TTP, with the ability to gather more support in terms of anti Pakistani establishment, has control over 8 of those factions. And these factions under the affiliate of TTP are now operating independently. So it's not just TTP. The militant organization that you named, TJP, is one of those factions that has now recently, I would say in a time span of 3 years, has come up, and now they've independently come up to provide material support. And this is an allegiance. This is the level of allegiance that is escalating, which is going to escalate again, sir, in 2023. And the level of escalation of allegiance coming in from affiliates is going to last until early 2024. Again, that is an assessment that I've made. So in the first half of 2023, we saw a large number of Pakistani militants, after certain decisions that the Pakistani government has taken, whether they've done a military operation, they're infuriated by how the treatment happens in FATA and NWFP. I have analyzed Pakistani militants under administrative control of Taliban as a format of TTP, and they've now started taking into multiple insurgency operations, which are currently being ordered by TTP under the influence of Taliban. So now you've got a Taliban who sits on top, a TTP emir sits on below the decision making structure, and all the Pakistani militants who are controlled under one administrative control of TTP will now be involved in conducting counterinsurgency, or I would say insurgency operations in the case of Pakistanis. And most of these guys, most of these fighters, let me tell you, sir, most of these fighters are not, I would say, not amateurs. They are the ones who've got years of experience fighting against the US and their allies, and they've proved their ability to withstand, hold the fort, if I may say so, in the saga against the Americans. Whether you talk about any of the operations in Nangahar or Nuristan, they have combat experience, real combat experience. So this is the level. So now the Tehrik-e-Taliban does not hold amateurs. So these are hard battle hardened fighters. Now, what also is interesting part, sir, Taliban fighters who were very disgruntled, whether they didn't get the उनको अपॉइंटमेंट नहीं मिला तालिबान के हायरार्की में, उनको लगा कि हमारी वैल्यू नहीं है, हमारे लड़ाके ज्यादा हैं, हमारे लड़के ज्यादा हैं, हमें वैल्यू नहीं कर रहे अमीर, या तजीक उज़्बेक का रिलेशनशिप था, या तजीक पश्तून का मसला बीच में आ गया. They had quit their ranks of Taliban and they had joined ISKP. Now, sir, what happened is, most of those fighters, after the decision I would say after and even before the decision to move the refugees outside to Afghanistan, they've quit ISKP and they've joined TTP. This is the first transition that I've ever seen in the history of Daesh, sir. So normally what happens is people, the disgruntled militia commanders, fighters, small numbers, less than 50, less than 100, they normally have a tendency to deviate to Daesh because they've got more money, they are more ruthless, they don't care about one particular religion. But then the transition coming in from battle-hardened fighters from Daesh coming in and joining Tehrik-e-Taliban ranks. I mean, that is amazing. That is something that I've never, I don't think even this transition has actually ever happened, whether you talk about Syria or whether you talk about Daesh elsewhere. So this is something which is very concerning. Now, what the one of the things that is catchy in terms of Tehrik-e-Taliban, sir, is the organizational structure. Now, if you look at the organizational architecture, you've got a leadership who's not motivating or who's not hell bent on motivating Afghan Taliban. The leadership has a tendency to bring in local militants, Pakistani militants. And this is a decision that they want to achieve and replicate, if I may say so, Taliban style victory in Pakistan. So you've got Pakistani militants, battle hardened, with the capability, means, mechanisms to actually conduct an insurgency against even a small, I would say, a barely trained, heavily equipped army, and they want to implement a Taliban styled, I would say, victory in the region. Now, so to make their cause legitimate, sir, this is also something very interesting which none of the militant organizations do. And why TTP, I would rather differentiate TTP from Taliban for a bit, and I would rather differentiate even Tehrik-e-Taliban from Al-Qaeda and other factions. TTP has issued a fatwa. Now, these militant organizations do not generally issue a fatwa until and unless it is religiously defined. So these guys, these folks have issued a fatwa against any harm to local population. So what they've done is, if they identify that there is a mole in, let's say, in the presence of FATA or in NWFP in regions in and around, they don't kill the individual per se, or they don't harm his family like Taliban used to do in early 1996, or they did when they came to power in 2021. Instead, they go through a process of indoctrination, and they ensure that not only them but their family members are part of Tehrik-e-Taliban administrative structure. I've never seen something like an organism that actually thinks. So Tehrik-e-Taliban has an ability to reabsorb factions, and so if there is an engagement between, let's say, two militia of over one particular territory, they are the ones who act as a sense of a peace deal. So which, with the ability that sooner or later these two factions will unify under the TTP flag, they will reabsorb those factions, and then the internal tussle and ambitions is going to be eliminated with the Amir sitting on top of them. So this is something which which normally military scholars and I am very particular about, it is known as strategic resilience. I have never seen militant organizations and Islamist factions particularly demonstrating such type of an resilience. So what TTP now has done is, it has started growing affiliates in the presence of this. I mean, the way that they've bolstered themselves. Now, this has resulted TTP, which is humongous amount of volunteers. They are no short of supply for battle hardened troops, and I'm not just talking about the commanders level. I'm also talking about the junior ranks as well. And they don't have, and most of them are willing to fight Pakistani residents, Pakistani Pashtuns willing to fight against Pakistan. Now, so I asked myself as to what are the possible areas that one could possibly go if we intend to find battle-hardened troops to recruit. Incidentally, most of these recruitments are happening in three different regions. Let me tell you, of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa: Lakki Marwat, Lower Chitral, Khyber, and Bannu districts. This has become an area of massive recruitment. They essentially have recruitment posters with individuals who sit and stand, who basically make a stand, sit on a pavement of some sorts, and they have open recruitment procedures. And this has been going on since January 22. So the eligibility criteria of being a member of TTP is you need to be a Pakistani national. You need to be motivated, and the rest the TTP is going to take care of it. This has provided a strategic opportunity to TTP, sir. Let me be very categorical in saying this. In the areas of southern Balochistan, where that mostly in the tribal district of North Waziristan and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. Now, what they've done is in this area there was certain presence of Baluchi militant groups until 2022. Now what happened is टीटीपी started expanding its influence because आपके लड़ाके बढ़ गए. जब आपके लड़ाके बढ़ गए तो आपका एरिया छोटा पड़ गया. जब आपका एरिया छोटा पड़ गया तो आप जो है वो बगल के एरिया में जाने लग गए. Now this was a problem for Baluch, particularly in dominated areas of Baluchistan, provinces of Pakistan. And this is going to be a possible clash, sir. Let me be very categorical for in terms of even if I not term this as a civil war concept. Now, in 2023, I would say late half of 2023 is already passed. By early 2024, there is going to be a huge there is a possibility that at some point of time TTP's influence is going to be so grown that they will be matching up to the Baluch levels with the Baluchi BLA, the Baluchi Liberation Army. Now, not just that, sir. North Waziristan is essentially going through a contention plan. The contention is between the Hafiz Gul Bahadur group and the TTP. So what they've done is North Waziristan is going to be is essentially, sir, a point of I would say a point of contest, where you not only have Baluchistan, you've also Baluch groups, you've also have Hafiz Gul Bahadur groups, small factions that have been dominated the areas since inception. They've been present there since the Mujahideen first entered into to the sands of Afghanistan. So the problem is going to be and let me tell you, that is not the problem, sir. The problem is going to be for the ISI trained Islamic militants. Now, ISI has been training Islamist factions, those were once affiliated with Taliban. Now, because they've been controlled by the ISI, so the point of contention again falls in this area is, will the ISI put these militant areas or these Islamist factions into a firefight against Tehrik-e-Taliban and Hafiz Gul Bahadur if they both decide to unify? So militant Islamist factions versus militant Islamic factions, one trained by TTP, one trained by and governed by the Taliban in one way, and one governed by ISI at some point of time. So it's a point of contention, a clash between, I would say, a potential civil war between terror organizations. I've never seen this. Even in Yemen, I've never seen this. So the question is, why am I sir, you might feel that I'm a bit overconfident when it comes to Tehrik-e-Taliban, but sir, let me tell you, I'm very cautious when it comes to TTP actually maintaining an administrative dominance in the region. If you say, do I see that they may be able to control and hold the territory? Holding the territory is something that I've actually I'm very not very comfortable to have to be very confident in it, because we saw what ISIS did in holding a territory. You can't hold a territory for long. Eventually, it is going to capitulate. But with HGB and TTP coming in together, let's say they come in together, HGB has been Hafiz Gul Bahadur group has been unchallenged for years, and Tehrik-e-Taliban, which is growing, it is highly unlikely that Al Qaeda and Haqqani networks are not going to jump in. And I have sources who have confirmed to me in numerous ways that Siraj himself is making sure that North Waziristan remains uncontested. So even Siraj himself is making sure that HGB, which is containing the North Waziristan sanctuary, does not eventually go and fight against the Tehrik-e-Taliban. Instead, let's unite. We all are fighting against the atrocities committed by Pakistan in the North region. So unify. Now, there is a possibility that HGB or Hafiz
Ek minute. One question. Now, you said you brought Haqqani in. So, what is the relationship between the Haqqani group and TTP and Al Qaeda? Where do these this triangle fit?
Sir, it's a very interesting question. Now the thing is, when you say what is the relationship between Al Qaeda and Siraj Haqqani, sir, Siraj Haqqani is the guy who essentially pointed out to the Americans, hey, look, I've got the AQ guy sitting in my house. Now, Siraj Haqqani is one individual who plays all the sides. In the interest of bringing Al Qaeda to its knees, because Al Qaeda at some point of time realized that the relationship between TTP is overgrown, and there is a point of time that TTP may overshadow Al Qaeda. So it feels like Al Qaeda have been training TTP since, or Tehrik-e-Taliban or Taliban, since inception, since even they were born. So Al Qaeda, being the oldest of the militant organization, is now threatened and fighting for its survival. So Siraj is a guy, is an individual, a very very smart man who would, with a not even waiting for a whiff, is going to sideline AQ, merely limiting his power as an advisory capacity, and probably in the Shura, if there is, because there isn't one right now, and completely isolate Al Qaeda to perhaps to a propaganda activity with barely manpower strength that they currently claim to hold, and isolate them to limited decision making only in the level of information warfare. So it's going to be Siraj's show, because Siraj holds the key. And sir, let me tell you, uh, this is very interesting, because we say that this is Taliban 2.0. Essentially, this is not Taliban 2.0. This is Taliban 3.0. So we have a tendency to not cultivate or even accumulate the number of years the Taliban has been under insurgency. 21 years Taliban has fought under insurgency, sir. And there have been 3 amirs in total. And uh, um, with the previous Amir, the Haqqani group were so much involved in the engagement of insurgency that Haqqani were essentially elevated to the level of decision making even then, when Taliban 2.0 existed during the insurgency years. So Mullah Baradar and Haqqani are the oldies guys. They're the veterans of this war. They've been veterans of the previous war. So for the relationship to survive, there has to be a relationship in the first place, sir. So to answer your question and to summarize what you've asked, sir, Al Qaeda is finished and is largely going to be remain as a, I would say, an advisory capacity at best, or perhaps do an information propaganda through the mediums that they use. Still trying to propagate and motivate more fighters to joining the ranks. But that's it, sir. Their physical presence is completely over. They don't have a face for it. Most of the faces that you see currently in Al Qaeda are younger lots that were born after 1998 or 1999. They don't even have the manpower. So the current Al Qaeda guy who's got some influence is essentially sitting in Somalia. He came all the way from Al Shabaab. So Al Shabaab has affiliated to Al Qaeda, and that is the reason why Al Shabaab is now nominating one representative to sit here in Afghanistan. What does Al Shabaab do? So it's a completely cut off. The game is over for Al Qaeda. Now, what does Siraj's plan is in this entire ecosystem when it comes to, I would say, Al Qaeda, Haqqani, and Taliban? So, Taliban, we also must understand that Haqqani is a nominated member in the Shura, and he is also the Minister of Interior and also holds two different appointments, including the intelligence branch. So he is in terms of, if I say in a legitimate state, if I may compare the decision making, is he's Minister of Interior. So he holds a political appointee, a political nomination as well. But the Tehrik-e-Taliban picture and the picture for the whole gambit of what Haqqani is going to do, Haqqani is still going to have its relationship with Pakistan. Now, this is something the Taliban will never. I would say it's a nightmare for them that they can't actually close the door and shut the light off. Haqqani's, in spite of having all affiliations to the emir, in spite of having a political appointment, will always keep one door open for the Pakistanis, because the Pakistanis are one of the reasons why he made who he is. So he is the entry and the exit point to Pakistan. If Taliban wishes to have a backdoor communication, they're going to do it through Siraj Haqqani. I think one of the reasons why they've nominated him to a level of MOI and to the level of intelligence GDI, there were initial scenarios where ISI actually went in to train GDI. There were advisors from ISI, military advisors from ISI, actually training the GDI. But then this relationship couldn't continue because of the firefight along the border, and then the whole issue of Durand line came into play. So to answer your question, sir, Al Qaeda is finished, and Siraj is going to be the entry point for Pakistan and the exit point for Afghan for Taliban relationship with Pakistan as well. And it's going to have a huge impact on Tehrik-e-Taliban, because the if you look at the presence of where Tehrik-e-Taliban is and HGB and all these smaller factions are, Siraj Haqqani is in the best position to negotiate a peace. And let me tell you, sir, for a few, if this situation would have been escalated, I would have guaranteed that Siraj would have been the point person for Pakistanis to approach Tehrik-e-Taliban for a peace deal.
Okay. Now tell me, what are TTP's plans? ये तो आपने बोल दिया कि they are doing recruitment, ये वो and all that. What is their
Right, sir.
aim? What do they want? वो तो बोल रहे
Very
हैं शरिया
interesting.
लाओ वगैरह वगैरह, but
बिल्कुल,
that is a
right, sir.
big aim. Immediate क्या करना चाहते हैं वो?
Sir, Tehrik-e-Taliban is going to focus on two things. उनका सीधा सीधा कहना है, हमें दूसरे मसलों में नहीं पड़ना, पाकिस्तान अफगानिस्तान हमारा सबसे बड़ा और अहम मसला है. So the nature of TTP, if I may say so, sir, is rooted in local sentiments, and they are very affected by Pakistan's tribal politics. Now, Pakistan has a very long history of tribal politics. They are more interested in focusing what the local level is. So their objective, if I may say so, sir, is to contain and expand their territory in Pakistan and Afghanistan. Now you may argue, sir, that TTP does, because Taliban also, just like TTP is just part of Taliban only with the same centralized structure and decision making and taking orders from Emir, must have extra regional ambitions as well. But with the ability and the focus and the manpower that Taliban has, including the recruitment posture and everything, that I can only point, which actually I can pick up the crumbs and I can tell you, is they're not interested in supporting jihadists elsewhere. And this is a narrative that Al Qaeda used to play. They used to remind suicide bombings of how particularly the CIA base in Khost. There was one of the which has become one of the testimonies in State Department as well. But under Mufti Noor Wali Masood, it is highly likely, and I'm telling you with nobody's 100% sure, sir. And the intelligence is all about pointing towards where
Assessment.
actually, sir. I mean, I can point towards one particular area, but then um, it's highly likely and for TTP to remain a transnational approach, in particularly with respect to Afghanistan and Pakistan. Now, where do you? So you may point out to me as to where does this lead to, or where are you coming from? Now, Mufti Masood, if you look at this individual's character, took up leadership in 2018, sir. And then the first thing, he's a scholar within himself, sir. I really envy him. So he comes up and then he makes a memo. I mean, a militant scholar. He comes up and makes a memo. And he drafts a memo by saying, हमारा modus operandi ऐसा होगा. अच्छा, कैसा होगा? The manifesto exclusively mentioned that TTP will remain focused on local affiliates. They will make a commitment of focusing their fight against the Pakistani state. So, if I may summarize the entire 2-page narrative that TTP has said, TTP is going to focus on two particular factors: Al Qaeda's declining influence in the region and replicating Taliban's success in Pakistan. So now you may say that Al Qaeda cannot be finished, because again, Al Qaeda is not a membership based; it's an ideology based, and everybody's ideology change. But sir, let me tell you that Al Qaeda, if push comes to shove, Al Qaeda may come up, join the league of perhaps shaping TTP, not committing the same mistake that it did by shaping Taliban. Because now what happens is, shaping Taliban essentially empowered Taliban to have a state. So now Al Qaeda is going to come and interfere. Al Qaeda is going to try and manipulate the structure and the governance, as well as, I would say, control how the Tehrik-e-Taliban grows. Now it's also interesting because now Siraj comes into play, the Emir sits on top. So how does the equation going to pan out? It is perhaps a discussion of some other time, sir. But Al Qaeda
नहीं,
is
एक और बताओ इसमें. आपने
sir.
बोल दिया Al Qaeda will come and shape TTP, and Afghanistan will, and Siraj Haqqani will also be in that process. Where
Right,
does
sir.
ISI fit in this? After all,
Now,
ISI
sir,
has got its link with all this.
sir, this is very interesting, sir. Now, what ISI is going to do is, I is going to sit and watch, and they're literally going to sit and watch, because that's the only thing that they can do, and they will utilize this whether AQ comes in or this Raj comes in, and they're going to have this amount of time that they probably can scrounge to build up the ISI affiliated militant factions that are fewer and fewer in number. Scrounge and consolidate is a strategy that ISI will follow, because what's happening is when TTP is growing, a lot of affiliates are looking at them. They're saying, "Oh wow, they blew 10 trucks yesterday. They killed 30 Pakistani Rangers, the other day." So the objective is trying to be achieved through Taliban, not by their individual efforts. So they are losing their legitimacy in the eyes of the local people. So, what is the point in losing the legitimacy? Instead, let's join them and gain some legitimacy from them, and perhaps showcase that, see, we are also doing the same thing, and ensure that the will of the people and the trust of the people remains intact. In case of ISI, they've been trained to do one thing and one thing only: kill. They've never been focused on what the local masses are doing. They've never emphasized these are mostly picked up boys from perhaps Minanshar and Quetta and all of those places. They've been picked up from everywhere, which no affiliation to the northern region. Now they are in a dilemma because they've been listening to ISI for 23 years, 24 years, 25 years. Now the only thing that they do is all of them are Pashtuns. So now will Pashtuns fight against Pashtuns? This is something that the ISI will try to do. But will they do it, or will they be able to do it? Because essentially most of the Islamist factions, even if trained by the ISI, are Pashtuns. They're not of different, they're not of different I would say ethnicity. So the question again is boiled down to, even if ISI tries to build up a Pashtun centric militant organization that can be only controlled by ISI, will they go and fight their own brotherhood?
Hell
So
not.
this is going.
Okay, so where does Pakistani army fit in this?
Sir, Pakistani, sir, poor boys are gonna get whacked in this equation, because let me tell you, what the TTP leadership essentially talks about Pakistani army. If you look at the brochure that they distribute on the first day when you join Tehrik-e-Taliban, is engage Pakistani security establishment. That is the first thing that they've written in the top. And so the idea comes from one state, one enemy. So second, bolster influence through affiliates. Now, when you have only one agenda, that is go against the Pakistani security establishment, blanket agenda, how do you do it? By bolstering influence through affiliates. That means even if somebody ideologically may disagree with you, ethnically may not, or the unification, the concept of unification comes up at the cost of engaging Pakistani security establishment, yes, join us. Now, the third agenda that they talks about is strict adherence to united cause. Now, this is something I call as ideologue synchronization. The ideology is what? A control over Pashtun land. Pashtun land is divided into two. Afghanistan has one, Pakistan has one. So the Pashtun land goes all the way to the north. Most of the north is basically what was once part of Pashtun land. So the land of the north belongs to them. If you're a Pashtun, doesn't matter. If you're a Pashtun of a different ideology, join us. But the agenda should be, engage the Pakistani security establishment. Also, this entire gambit, they've been in the Taliban 2 years, they've in the 2 decades of Taliban insurgency. Now, TTP and all these affiliate organizations have restructured their modus operandi. And how have they done it? Again, Pakistani jihadists. So everything has a Pakistani element into it, sir. I mean, it's a very so
So they've grown out of Pakistan like
grown
amoeba,
out of
and
Pakistan.
they're now going to attack them.
Absolutely, sir. So the question that you asked is what happens to Pakistani boys is they don't have a land to defend. They don't have a land to defend,
Right.
because if you look at the Pashtun land is so huge that the entire frontier force, I would say 4 divisions of frontier force essentially comes on Pashtun land only. So if they decide, if all Pashtun led Islamist factions, whether you talk about HGB or Baluch or TTP, does decide to unify, sir, they are going to drive them into the Arabian Sea. That is the whole concept. So that's the,
Okay,
sir.
fine. Now the next question is, what is the level of coordination between these Baluch guys and these chaps, and how are they coordinating, and what is the future in Baluchistan?
Now, sir, that's very interesting. TTP is like a young, ambitious organization, true to the cause, has the ability to influence people, wins the trust of people. I've never seen an institution, sir. I would rather call this as an institution because it's a very structured and organized way. If you look at how they function, I've never seen a militant faction that structures in the way that, bolstered influence, strict adherence to united cause. Like Taliban, we'll focus on local recruitment, expansion of local affiliates, prioritize Pakistani jihadists. Unlike Taliban, TTP, we will not go into fighting along the borders, or we will not even think about what's happening in Badakhshan province. That is not our area to operate. We will only limit our focus on supporting the Taliban in Afghanistan and getting the areas that we were essentially lost in Pakistan. We will renew, and then again, they talk about stuff. They talk about tactics that Baluch and HGB groups have never even, I would say, may have pondered at some point of time, but never had the ability to actually strike or write in their modus operandi or propaganda materials. So TTP says that we will renew our campaign to target political elites. I have never seen a militant organization that actually goes up and says we will kill political elites. We will target them. We will target them in their homes. Tehrik-e-Taliban has written it very categorically in its recruitment propaganda, and continue to blame. They added on, then continue to blame civil and military leadership, who is who's basically hell bent in corruption in the north. And this has resulted in, they are also believing in one of the ideology which comes up by saying they are the ones, these corrupt political leadership are the ones who are creating severe economic crisis, and that is the reason why we have a sole, I would say, a pure park cause of neutralizing them, because they have been stealing the money. They have been stealing through corruption the money from the people. Again, the people concept comes into play. So the level of trust they have on the people. Now, sir, when you talked about what will happen to the Baluch group. Um, this is where Siraj's role is going to play. And again, sir, this is a hypothesis that I've put in. There are three scenarios that arise from TTP versus HGB and Baluch. The first scenario is all are Pashtuns. Now, even Baluchis, they have a certain sanctity towards the Pashtun land. So, because again, the Pashtun land was taken from them, not from the Baluchis, but from TTP. So they know the pain of losing their own land. So the ability to sympathize with TTP is the first in the chart. So the Baluchis may come up and say, okay, so this is going to be our area, this is going to be our area, we are going to live in peace. The second scenario is there could be a power tussle. Now, if there is a power tussle, TTP is a huge Pashtun oriented organization which can literally take over Baluch at any point of time. Now, the Baluchis are smart enough to do this. And what they've done is they've started doing combined operations already. Now, when you have Baluchi groups, part of Tehrik-e-Taliban, operating against the Pakistani state and the Pakistani military per se, there is a level of bonhomie that develops with time that actually takes a lot of time. Now, 2025, let's say projecting this into a hypothesis, this relationship is going to grow. Now, in as like all militant organizations, ambitions is going to come up at some point of time. So will those ambitions result in a let's say a Baluch versus a TTP? It's highly unlikely, because they've already started doing combat ops together. They've been doing insurgency against the Pakistani state since the Taliban ever took place. The level of momentum, the level of confidence, and they believe in what the TTP believes in, the ability to give back the people, that is the Pashtun land. So the Baluchis will going to fall in line, sir. Now, similar goes for Hafiz Gul Bahadur group as well, because Hafiz Gul Bahadur is much smaller than Baluchi factions. But Hafiz group
Okay.
Bahadur has a stronghold. So just like Baluchis. But then again, so there is the power transition is going to happen in a way that there is a possibility that you may find HGB groups, perhaps members of those, holding high ranking appointments within TTP Taliban. But the thing is, there is a possibility that the HGB and the TTP is going to coexist because they're
So
essentially
what you're trying to say, what you're जो पिक्चर आप बता रहे हो सबको कि
right,
ये
sir.
है कि टीटीपी हैज ग्रोन,
Sir,
राइट? They have networked with the Baluch guys. They have
right.
networked with the Haqqani group, right?
Yes,
And they have networked with every Tom, Dick, and Harry, and they've got the trust of the people.
right.
Okay. And they are going to slowly sideline ISI, and then they've made ISI sort of important out there, right?
Absolutely. So
And
there's no doubt about it.
and their targets are the Pakistani army and the Pakistani state.
Absolutely.
Okay. And if this be so, what what is the level of problems you see along the Durand line in 24 and 25?
Now, so in 24, it's going to be very interesting because there is another actor which I have not discussed yet, sir. The role of Daesh. And with the level of prominence TTP and I wouldn't call Baluch and HGB as coming up to at par with TTP. So I would rather refer to TTP as a much larger, broader umbrella organization with the possibility of Baluch and all of these organizations under them in governance, sir. Not in terms of in administrative per se as well, but not in terms of operation. So they've got agendas of their own, which the TTP is not going to touch. Again, this is a hypothesis that I've come up with. So there is a possibility that TTP will put all of them under one unified umbrella. Now, taking TTP as in the context of a unified umbrella, Daesh is watching this segment, and Daesh is wondering, where are we going to be? Because Taliban has controlled in the Taliban has I would say a significant control in the south of Afghanistan, which also stands the borders of northern Pakistan. So the borders are sealed. Now the border area is contained. The eastern provinces in the hinterlands has already been won by Taliban. Mazar, you win Mazar, you win everything. So the Mazar is being held very strongly by Taliban. I would say Nangahar, Loya region, Paktika, all of these have been stronghold. Helmand, then you've got Vardak, Kapisa. So these are all stronghold, very stronghold commanders, provincial commanders, very hand-picked loyalist by the Amir himself. Now, where does Daesh comes into play? Now, in 2024 and 2025, sir, the situation is going to be like this. Daesh will continue to exist. The existence of Daesh is going to be, I would say, significant because what happens is, sir, Taliban, nonetheless, we may not. Some may legitimize. China did sending an ambassador without a legitimate,
Hey, that's
even
okay. We are not talking of Taliban.
legitimizing.
I'm talking of the situation with TTP, Pakistan along the border. How do you
Absolutely,
see this? This is the last
that is
question.
where
After this, we'll take some questions. Yeah.
right, sir, right, sir. That is where I'm getting at, sir. So because sir, at the end of the day, we must also realize now that sir, Tehrik-e-Taliban sits under the umbrella of Taliban. So the Taliban is the whole
Yeah, yeah.
structure. So in the context of that, sir, Daesh is looking at them, and then Daesh is saying, "Where are we?" So what is one point of contention is, sir, the Pakistan will definitely come up with Daesh. One logic, the only logical arrangement that I've come up with, which are the two entities that have most to lose? Pakistan, ISI, and Daesh. Now, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. There have been internal reports coming in from the Ministry of Interior saying Pakistanis were involved in training members of Daesh. This is the first report that actually brings Pakistan at the, I would say, in link with Daesh. So just like and Lashkar-e-Taiba and Jaish-e-Mohammed, which have been trained, there is a strong possibility. And now, I would say, as a scholar who minutely refers all of these as a hypothesis, I'm not going to go what the report has said, but I'm essentially going to go by the logic that there are only two entities that have most to lose. That is Pakistan, the state of Pakistan, the state of ISI, and the current state of Daesh. So, sir, there is a possibility that Daesh might enter this game, and there is a possibility that Pakistan might drag them to enter this game, because Pakistan cannot win against Taliban with the bunch of Islamist factions it has trained in the last 20 years.
Okay, fine. So the last question is is there any capability within the Pakistan establishment to divert some of these fellows towards us?
Sir, there is a strong possibility, but the possibility is highly unlikely. Now, when I said there is a strong possibility, they will definitely do it. They've been doing it, sir, but they don't have a choice, because when you have limited resources, एक तो लड़ाके ही नहीं है सर. So जब अब लड़ाके ही नहीं है, एंड अगर आप लड़ाकों को हमारे यहाँ भेजोगे, तो आपके लड़ाके तहरीके तालिबान के साथ कौन लड़ेगा? So either what they are going to do is they are going to train LET and Jaish, continue to do so, send some of the guys here, and replace those ranks by Daesh. Now there is also a
so that means
possibility.
the threat from I understand. So the threat from Taliban and Pakistan and ISI towards our side has reduced quite a bit because TTP is doing all its business. Okay, so we'll take some questions here. You have actually painted a big picture, which is it's like a Picasso's picture. You know, jo dekho wo jo samjho wo hi sahi hai. But then that's how this whole story is. Okay.
Right, sir.
Okay, we'll take a few questions. Be clear and think, because otherwise we'll run short of time.
Right, sir.
Are the attacks like Myanmar just another attacks or part of a much larger thing, that is Pashtun revolt against Punjabis for an eventual independent KPK from Pakistan?
Yes, I would say Myanmar was just the beginning, and let me tell you, I have noted on a graph as to every day how many attacks takes place every day. So in this week, 25 have been taken place, out of which only 12 were reported. So the level of escalation is going, and when it comes to the KPK per se. Now, KPK is I wouldn't remove. Sir, may I see the question again, sir?
Yeah.
Are part of much larger thing that is Pashtun revolt. Okay, so yes, but again, the point is Pashtun revolt and Myanmar is a reflection of Pashtun revolt against the Punjabis, and the idea is not to eventually have an independent KPK. The idea is it's a Pashtun land. Now we know as Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, or they came up with a very salty resolution and they united. But then the idea is not to have an independent KPK. We are getting this wrong. The idea is to have a Pashtun land. There has always been a Pashtun land. Hence, the Afghanistan.
Okay, that means either it will be a separate Pashtun land away from Afghanistan or an extension of Afghanistan into Pakistan.
The highlightly, sir, the extension of Afghanistan to Pakistan. Yes.
Pakistan. Now, he says it appears to be a cocktail of non-state actors with irregular forces under command. The psyche of leaders apparently oscillates between fear of loss and greed of conquest. Your views. Is it this or is it pure ideology?
No, sir. It's
Just
not,
say yes or no, whichever.
Sir, no, sir, not ideology, sir. It's it's not ideology. It's the hatred towards the Pakistani state.
Okay. Right. So the hatred towards Pakistani overshadows all this business of okay. Right. There's a feedback you would like to take. Please speak next time we come. You'll have to take this into account. Please speak a little slower, Mishra ji. Okay, you're running with your words. Okay, right. Yeah, that's okay. Right. Right. Okay. What percentage in square kilometers of Balochistan is claimed by Pashtuns as Pashtun territory? Pashtuns must be claiming some part of Balochistan also?
Yes, sir. So now the thing is, sir, there is no measurement per se, and I think I'm the wrong guy to actually put it into a measurement perspective. But
No, don't
what I can
measure. But you said, are they interested in that territory? That's the more important thing.
Yes, yes, absolutely. So Baluch comes. So again, Baluch makes 1/4 of Khyber, NW, and Fata province. It's just Baluch is one part of it. So I would say is how much is does Pashtuns carry or Pashtuns control territory? Baluchi are a different segment of altogether. So
Okay.
now the agreement is going to be the fight essentially is going to be whether the Baluchis let Taliban come and conquer or let it administratively control under the jurisdiction of Baluchis, if I may say so.
Okay. Seen. Okay. There's not a question to you, but I'll answer this. Please request Lieutenant General Sanjay Kulkarni to avoid going to Pakistani channels. I saw him recently with Arzu Kazmi. Thanks very much. Look, Sharmila and everyone, it is important that our people go and speak on other channels. It is not
Yes.
that, unless we go and tell our point of view, और उनको जब तक हम दिखाएंगे नहीं कि हम क्या हैं और हमारे से टकराने से उनको क्या प्रॉब्लम होगा, it is not this thing. So we must tell the Pakistani people what India is all about. So hence we should not exclude them. If some channels in India call Pakistani people, that's their choice. I don't call. I don't like to call any Pakistani on my channel because I don't like to talk to them also. Right? But that should not. We should be broad-minded enough and have a larger view where we allow people to go and talk there. If someone calls me to for a Pakistani channel, I'll not go. Definitely, I will not go. But others do. Let them do. There's no harm in it. Okay. Right. This is an interesting question. What is the role of raw in all of this?
Sir, I think I'm the wrong person to ask this question, sir.
Okay, fine. Okay. One off-topic question, sir. What are your thoughts about U.S. Marine reorg from heavy force to an island-hopping army? I'm in San Diego, and the Marine generals are not very happy. If I were a Marine general, I'll also be not very happy because the Marines were a complete force, which was an alternate to the army with some special capabilities. With this business of marine, island hopping army, their role in the overall power projection of USA has reduced, and it has been confined to littorals and small islands, which I don't think the Marines will be very happy to take on. Okay, now Brian, since you asked the role of Raw in all this, look, let's be very frank. Let me be very frank with you. I hope Raw does something there. Let me be very upfront. Okay, Raw should go and do something there. Whether it's doing is a question mark, because I don't think Raw has that kind of capability to go and do something there because it doesn't have the demographic, soil to plant its issues. But whereas on the other side, ISI has got enough Indians who are, what shall I say, subverted by themselves to help the ISI out. And this is our history. So we have to learn from that history. I would like the ISI to have a hand, but I don't think it has this thing. Okay, US. Yeah, please don't bring painter, Picasso, and terrorism debate. Look, you must see everything in its. We should not see anything in a straight line. That's what this fight
Absolutely.
against terrorism, insurgency, and all has taught me. You should see everything from every direction. I'll say 360-degree, uh,
Absolutely.
kind of a view. Okay, so I think we've come to the end of the whole talk today. It was a very interesting thing which you weaved out, Mishra, as to how
Sir,
TTP is organized, how Taliban is organized, and how they are controlling. Everyone is jostling for space. But in all this jostle for space, ये तो चलता रहेगा. But one thing which has come through is TTP is growing in strength. And as TTP is growing in strength, it is going to hit Pakistan more. And because their target is Pakistan army and the Pakistan state, because they want to bring Sharia, they want to consolidate that entire area. And another important thing which you have mentioned today is they don't want to establish a separate state away from Pakistan. They want to establish something called Pashtunistan, which is an extension of Afghanistan. Okay, and that means Taliban and Pakistan hereafter will be at loggerheads at some level. There'll be some cooperation, but they'll be at loggerheads, which I started the whole story with Pakistan's PM and that Ambassador Tokir Ahmed's editorial, which you actually, in the course of your talk, you have actually confirmed what they are thinking. Right. So we are going to go into interesting times. And the third point, which is important, which you have mentioned today, is that the Pakistani ISI and the establishment has very little leeway to lift people from that side, trained militants, and push them into India. They will do something or the other. It's not that they don't have, but they cannot do a Hamas style of an attack. Because if they
Yeah.
do a Hamas style of an attack, someone else might do a Hamas style of an attack on them itself. Right? They have to hold that area through some method, some counter this thing, and I don't think Pakistan army is so strong to handle that what you have described today, and the Indian army and the Indian state the way it is. So, which is a good thing for us. Okay. So, what we'll do is I mean today we've got a clear idea. मैं सबको बताना चाहता हूँ कि ये है एक्चुअल स्थिति और हमारा फायदा यही होगा कि टीटीपी और बढ़ता जाए. अगर मैं रॉ में होता तो मैं टीटीपी को जितना पैसा दे सकता हूँ दे दूंगा ताकि वो बढ़ता जाए. राइट, सादे कि वो पश्चिमिस्तान बने जो भी बने बनते रहे, but Pakistan army or Pakistan deep state ko is engaged that side, and Pakistan is either internally looking or it is looking westward and not eastward, and उसी में हमारा फायदा है, and that helps our progress and rise as a nation. Okay, next time we'll choose something else in this area to understand the Taliban and its links with China, understand its links with Hamas, understand its
Right.
links with the Middle East, and see how it is. Because after all, Taliban has links with Qatar and all that. So we'll leave it at that. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Anand, for coming here. We'll get you back after, say, 10, 15, 20 days. And you choose a topic hereafter and we'll talk about it. Okay?
Certainly, sir.
Right.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you
And
so much for having me, sir.
yeah, and thanks a lot सबके लिए, सबको जो इसमें आए हैं और जो आए हैं, please like and subscribe if you like this channel and subscribe, increase it because we're going to have more interesting talks. I'm going to get more new people on thing. Tomorrow I'll not be doing a podcast because I have some work. Day after tomorrow, we're going to talk of India and its neighbors with General Dushyant Singh as a joint podcast between Strive and Ghana Shot. Okay, till then, thank you, good evening, and Jai Hind.